You're good to go.
All right, good. Thank you. So, meeting called to order. We do have, I guess we have a quorum, right? I think we
Yep.
do. All right, so Max did get the minutes out from our last meeting. Has everybody had a chance to read those?
Yes.
I have. Um,
I have not, but I can try to review them real quick.
And I only have one comment. There was kind of a typo. I think it's the second paragraph. Let me see if I can find it here. Well, at least it didn't make sense to me. Maybe it'll make sense. See if I can find it. Of course, I'm
Hey,
not going to be able to find it now.
I have one question on that. Number 3 under branding.
Yep.
It says, I mentioned a former planner did a visioning survey during an election.
Yep. You said that. You said that people signed little sticky notes or something.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes. It wasn't a visioning survey. It was, I don't know. That's a good way to try to figure out what that was. Basically, he just was asking people to write down words that they thought of when they thought about the town.
Okay.
What would you call that?
Input gathering.
Yeah, let's do that. But we should say about the town in there, not during an election was sort of just a method that when people were there, that you had them in line so you could ask them if they wanted to participate. So that was the method, the visioning or whatever it was, input gathering to find out what people's thoughts and feelings were about the town. Or actually he was asking for what comes to mind when you think of Waldoboro, you know, and he asked for good things and not good things, but I think he was looking for some good things.
All right.
Okay, and then the only one I had, maybe this makes sense. I don't know. I'll read it again. It's, I guess, the second thought under branding, where you said, George went to a seminar that discussed a committee should be to identify a problem.
So the answer is self-evident? That's
No.
So
Yeah, it does sound a bit weird. That
it just sounds weird.
that a committee is meant to. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that it maybe discuss that a committee should first identify the problem.
All right.
So the answer is self-evident.
And so that was a tricky one to word because it's a theory basically that if you can identify the problem clearly enough, that the answer will often appear. Now, that's
Right.
tricky. That's a tricky one.
And I think it's worth a shot. I'm not sure it's applicable to trying to come up with a branding or not, but I think it might be a fun exercise for us to go through, spend a few minutes on and see what we can come up with.
All right.
So that's all I have. So with those changes, could we have someone move to approve the minutes?
Oh, wait a minute. One thing.
Oh,
Mhm.
At the
Yep.
bottom, you said Jen thinks Waldoboro is missing an anchor employer that will provide tons of jobs. I think that's a misnomer, tons of jobs.
Okay.
That is that word means nothing, you know, it's a very bad data word. And we don't have any quantifiable stuff for that. So could we find another word of that?
Just replace it with big employer.
Yeah, big employer. And take out tons of jobs.
Yeah, I'll take out tons of jobs.
Okay, you can say jobs, provide jobs.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily for new families. I mean, we could all use, I mean, you know.
All right. So I'll address that the planner didn't give a survey during the election. They were just gathering input.
Yep.
I'll fix the wording for the committee from committee language from George's seminar, and then I'm essentially just taking out tons of and just putting in jobs.
Tons of jobs, and you said a big employer or a sizable
Right.
employer.
Sizable employer.
Yeah, I don't know
Right.
how many. I don't know how clear anchor.
I-
Yeah.
A big employer.
Yeah.
Just say
Yeah.
that. Okay. All right.
So could we have a motion to approve the minutes with those changes?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Ruben's
Aye.
on mute. Okay.
It did
Thank
take
you.
me a minute to find my cursor.
All right, good. The minutes are, with changes, are approved. So, so let's go into this town branding idea. It's, Natalie and I spent the last hour or so talking about it. It's a really hard thing. It's a tough thing to do. And, you know, I think George's idea in terms of identifying some of the challenges that we have would help us. I struggle with that a little bit, and I'm not sure if it does or doesn't, but I mean, does the committee feel like it's a worthwhile exercise to go through?
Well, that list that is already there that I think was partly you, Jan, and
Yep.
if anybody else puts them in there. Those are probably the main things that pop up that, and like you said, some are things that are true and some are things that are just people's beliefs that perhaps data would prove not true. I was thinking about all this too, and you know, it's hard to wrap ourselves around this because I think it's too confusing to have too many different purposes. So branding is a very separate kind of thing. And if our purpose is to identify, what's that activity called, the SWOT one, the strengths, the weaknesses, the third and the fourth quadrants. Because I don't know if that might be a little more helpful to us in our thought process. And the other thing is that we do, I'm trying to think also the last few days about economic growth and economic development. And so that to me, and maybe you guys don't agree, but to me, that does focus on attracting business and opportunity to the town.
Right, right.
Which
But when-
would, yeah, go
When
ahead.
Bob, oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. Go ahead, Jim. I don't need to finish.
I was just gonna say, when Bob went to the select board and asked for, you know, kind of clarification on that, because that was kind of our original kind of challenge was, okay, are we looking for a branding to help bring business? Or are we looking for a branding to help people who live here feel good about living here? And the answer was, well, all those things.
Yeah, so we have to separate those because you come at, but those are two very different things and you come at them differently when you're attempting to address them.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
I was sorry. What might be a benefit is maybe because Jan did send out an email. If we went through each of the items that Jan identified, that is something that could be addressed in the town. And that might help at least brainstorm some ideas of what either this committee or something that the select board could work towards to address it.
Or things, or right, or things that we know that the town's already working towards. So that
Right.
would give us kind of a positive view of that.
Right.
So okay, well, I can do that. So the first thing I had on my list was that in my I don't want to say it's factual, but the what's the word? I can't think of the word.
Rating, the rating.
Regulation.
No, that people think of us this way, but it may
Perception.
not really have. It's perception, right?
Perception.
So this could be perception that we have a middling kind of school district, and that there's better school options nearby. And I actually went and did a little research, and we, our high school ranked 66 out of 114 in the last go round, and that was actually down a little bit from the year before, where I think it was somewhere in the 50s.
66 out of what? 100 and
114. So, okay, but you know, we know we have our schools are working to get better. Is that a true statement?
I think one of the problems our school district has is competing with school districts in other areas of the state that are wealthier.
Yeah,
They
more
take
money.
They take away from us the teachers we've hired who are
Yeah.
young and talented, and then they get a better offer and somewhere else, and off they go. And
Yeah.
there's high turnover in the school district.
Yeah,
And it's not just Waldeboro's problem. It's the problem of the entire district. Every town in the district has that problem. So I'm not so sure. I think it's related. I think it's important to call it out.
The thing too, Bob, it's like, there's not a lot that we can do except put pressure on the school board to put pressure on the school, right? But if you read what we got in the mail about the new budget, it's kind of full of that. It's got two
Mhm.
paragraphs about how they feel that we are under other areas and what we need more money for.
Well,
Mm.
maybe that's a state issue then. Maybe we need to lobby those powers that be to find ways of balancing the system so
Did
that
you
one
see-
school district doesn't have advantages over other school districts.
Right. Did you see, Bob, that the state for the first time ever is going to contribute their 55% to the school budget?
I did see that,
Yeah,
but
first time ever.
it's still predicated on factors that differentiate one community from the other.
Interesting.
It kind of perpetuates the inequality, even though they're
Hmm.
funding the 55%, yay. The richer school districts still get more money.
yeah, it's a percentage, not a dollar amount, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, it helps. I'm not saying no. I'm not pouring hot water on it. I'm just suggesting that there's got to be a better way of allocating.
So could we use our influence on our senator and rep, local senator and rep to maybe figure something out?
Yeah, I hate to go and ask people to solve the problem. We ought to come up with solutions that we think would be applicable across the board.
well, let me ask you, Bob, do you believe if the school district had increased funding, that our middling record would improve? Is that a given?
I think there's a strong correlation between quality and per pupil expenditure.
Yeah. Well, I think your example about good teachers leaving,
Yeah,
if you could afford to keep good teachers, you would have a better school district.
yep.
Plus, we have a very old infrastructure at the high school. I'm not sure how old Miller School is, But the middle school, at least, I was here when they built that, so it's not that old. So I think part of the budget, part of the intro to the budget that we got in the mail was talking about that they needed to do a lot of work on the facilities. Significant repairs and renovations to make them inviting, healthy, and safe learning environments.
When was the high school built?
60s or 70s? I can't remember. Max, do you know?
Pretty sure it was, yeah, 60s, 70s. That's about right. Because then that's when, because it used to be at the 80 grade school. That was the
it's
high school.
Yeah.
Then the Madomic was done in the 60s or 70s, making 80 gray the middle school until Madomic Middle School was made.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. All right.
Well, if I could ask a question, this is me being ignorant to the whole process, and I don't know, Bob might be able to answer it. But what type of communication is there with the RSU 40 school district in terms of not necessarily budget, but just all the activities that happen? You know, like I think of when I think of when I had to start going to college and I had to pick someone, you know, everyone, all the people with their heads in the clouds were like, oh, I'm going to pick an Ivy League school. I'm going to pick one of those ones where it has that name recognition. And then I got letters from University of Maine school system with like Orono being this big engineering one. You know, if you go to Orono, you're pretty much going to be a great engineer. Or you could go to not USM. Or no, that was a community college. The community college at the Brunswick Landing, where they're doing a almost first in the state, almost probably first in the nation thing of carbon engineering. Or I can't remember the exact program. But is there something unique perhaps at RSU 40 where it's not one teacher, but perhaps a program that could encourage some learning after school or something? Like, is there something unique standing out for RSU 40 that we can enhance rather than just getting money?
They're very good in sports. The teams are very good that I know of. That's something that we're known. I mean, we're pretty good at.
I need to go back to the website and find out, you know, when they rank schools, like what are they actually, what's the measure? Is there like an annual test students take and then?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought Maine does can't remember the actual program it's called, but I'm pretty sure they test you on math, science, reading, and writing. I thought they always did that. They did that when I was in high school.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that is how they quantified their rankings. All right.
John Martin has something to say, Jan.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Great. Thanks. Sorry about that. I think it would be really interesting to see what those scores are like and how it relates to the expenditure, because I think it's theoretically logical that the more money spent equals better results, but it would be interesting to see whether or not that's true, because I've seen in the past where that hasn't been the case. And I think the challenge with fighting that at the state level is it's a tough battle. It's a really tough battle to win. I mean, every legislator advocates for their own school district, and the ones that are the current haves don't want to be the have-nots, and so they're leaning on the legislators to do that, and so on and so forth. I think in terms of our ability to impact change, I think having a conversation with our legislators are all well and good, but I wouldn't anticipate that there would be any dramatic state policy change because it's been this way for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing I just wanted to comment on quickly, going backward, and I apologize for that, but with all due respect to the selectmen, a brand can't be everything to everybody. It just can't be. And I think one of the things that we may be wasting our time on is not defining who our audience is and what we're trying to accomplish. One of the things that, I hear us talking about, us needing more money in our school districts. And then I think about the tax rate in Waldoboro, and what I'm paying for taxes here is so much higher than what I paid in Lewiston, Maine, which is a larger city. And, if you're going to be spending more on your schools, guess what? Your taxes are going to
Taxes
go
go
up.
up.
And,
Yeah.
so I'm struggling from a branding perspective as to who our audience is and what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
And I would prefer, in terms of the dialogue and the discussion, when you brand to your strength.
Right.
Either you fake it until you make it and you create the brand you want to be, or you play to your strength versus try to eliminate the weaknesses. It's just, it's just really the best way to do it. I can tell you a story about a competitor hospital of mine at once. They kept talking about their award-winning care. They really never proved the fact that they won any awards, but they faked it until they made it, and it worked well for them. And they spent a lot of money on advertising, and they bought good reputation. There are ways to do that, but I guess that's my sense of frustration, is trying to figure out really who we are targeting, and for that group, what would be appealing to them. And if we don't have that in our town now, what would it take to get that here?
Yeah.
Anyway.
I agree, John. I feel the same way, because that's why I said before that I think to try to marry those two audiences is just too confusing. It's just not going to work.
Well, and that's kind of why I said earlier, what type of dialogue is there with the RSU 40 school system? I don't doubt that they've had a very tough year last year. But I always still wonder what helps them stand out amongst the competition in the area, because as John said, there's got to be something here in Waldoboro that'll make it unique for someone to want to learn here. And I mean, I think about how Julie and the Shellfish Committee is collaborating with the University of Maine and Oregon. Was it the University of Maine and Oregon? I think with the Madomic River Project. Doing that type of environmental science. I know there were teachers who were really pushing to try and have a solar farm that the RSU 40 school system could be sort of a subscriber from, so that they could then show off the panels to the students and then make that part of an agenda. And I hear all that. I'm wondering, if Waldoboro does play its cards right, maybe it could be this big environmental science type school system, but I never hear anything about that. I don't know what type of activities and collaborations the school promotes outside of just, as Jen just said, sports.
They also have a good horticulture program, and Mr. Lash is kind of famous.
A what?
Seed bank,
The seed bank and the horticulture program.
Yeah.
world renowned.
Yeah, world renowned. Yep.
And that's something that could be promoted a
Yeah.
bit more.
Yep.
Because if you're just looking at the rank that Jan just said, 66 out of 114, we're in the middle pretty much.
Middle.
Probably below.
Yeah.
But you start promoting how it has this very interesting program for environmental science in the river that kind of stands out amongst everyone else. That starts changing some tunes.
I like that. To John's point, you don't have to focus on your ranking. Focus on something you exceed at and do very well at, and make that kind of your cornerstone. Makes sense.
The school district, 2 years in a row now, has had Lincoln County Teacher of the Year.
Yeah.
Last year it was an English teacher. This year it's a math teacher.
But then that gets back into the problem that you guys just mentioned a moment ago, where we do have this great, outstanding teacher that that's sort of a standout. But then what happens the next year when one of the nearby school systems wants to poach them for a higher wage? Then you lost the teacher. It's like Moneyball,
Yep.
you know?
Yeah, but then you go out and create you create the next teacher of the year by going out and getting somebody who's trying to cut their teeth and let them come here and cut their teeth. It's sort of I equate it to sort of the newspaper business that I was in. I had a bunch of reporters that I cultivated over the years that went on to much better papers. But while I had them, they were cutting their teeth and they got really skilled and they were awesome. So it's sort of, the bigger fish are always, if people want money and that's what's driving them, the bigger fish are always going to consume the littler fish. It's just the way it is. So maybe the school district gets the reputation as one that allows people to find their way and create a pathway to excellence. And you point to the fact that you've had those types of.
We lost you, John. You're muted.
Yep. John, you got on, there we go.
Sorry. And so this may be the opportunity for those teachers to thrive before they move on. And that could be the reputation of the school, which is a great place for teachers to be cultivated, to become successful and excellent. And some of them, if they become enamored enough with their surroundings and the town in general, perhaps they'll stay.
Is Danny Jackson still the chair of the school board? Does anybody?
Yes, he is.
There's no reason why we couldn't invite Danny to talk about the school.
No, I think that'd be good.
Yeah, Steve Nolan might even come with him.
Steve's never accepted any invitation from me,
No, he hasn't.
WBA.
No, he hasn't.
No.
Hmm.
But if you can get him, I think that'd be worthwhile.
So I'm a little uneducated here. Who is Steve Nolan?
Superintendent of Schools, RS 40.
Where would one go meet him? Like, where's his office?
Warren, isn't it Warren? Not sure where.
No, his office is up in Union.
Union, okay.
So the other thing that's interesting to me is that we actually call our school district RSU, whatever it was. It's actually the name of it.
School district, yeah.
That's terrible.
Well, it used to be MSAD 40.
RSU is regional service something.
Yeah.
That's something that the state of Maine changed that, I believe.
We
So
went
do
through
all
this.
school districts go by a nomenclature like that?
Yeah.
It depends on the type. Yes, they do.
There was a movement afoot to save money by having school districts consolidate. And we were already consolidated. We already had like 5 towns. So we
Right.
weren't forced into that position like other school districts in the state
Okay.
were. But they changed it from MSAD 40 to RSU 40. I don't know why. But
All
we've
right.
always had the same schools participating in our district.
Right. And does our school district have a website?
Yes.
Yep.
So that would be a good place to go have a look and see. I would assume they would be promoting things that they're really good at.
You would hope so.
They have things on there that are about the students and about, well, you can go look.
I will, I'll go look.
Yep.
All right. So let me just go through the list here. I know that this is probably not the direction we're going to end up going in, but I'll just finish the thoughts. The other perception is that we're a poor town with a high subsidized housing population. I'm not sure how factual that is, but I know that's
There's several towns in Lincoln County that have higher levels of poverty than others. We're one of them.
Can we get metrics on that somewhere, possibly in like a shared Google Sheet document or something?
I think Max has developed some information about that. I know Julie has. The number that comes to mind for me is something in the 20% range who
That's
are
the poverty rate. Yeah.
area median income. Is that right, Max?
20%. That's the number of residents who are under the poverty line. Yep.
Yep. Yep. And that's relatively high in Lincoln County.
Yeah, I
So-
think Whitefield's similar.
Yep. So one of the problems that George talks about and that the town has been talking about for some time is poverty and dealing with it. And one of the reasons we hired a community navigator was to begin dealing with the root causes of poverty. And she's been amazing. She's doing an amazing job. And the problem isn't to treat the symptoms, it's to treat the cause and to find out what the causes are and to get in there and get to know the individuals who are having issues and find solutions for them.
Yeah.
And my impression, correct me if I'm wrong, Max, but my impression is that a lot of the poverty in Waldoboro is concentrated in the senior group, in the older population. At least those are the examples I become aware of when we hear of people who are struggling. It's not to say that it's just in that group, but it seems to me to be a major share of that group.
Yeah, that's about right. I didn't want to talk on it too much just because Jan said that he wanted to just go through all the different topics that he did sort of have on that email.
Yep. All right. Well, I think we know what the situation there. Number 4 was that the town does not have a hospital. So if you got to go to a hospital, you've got to go either Rockland, I guess, or Damascotta.
Rockport. And that's considered, other places in Maine have to drive over an hour, sometimes 3 hours to get to a hospital. We actually are very fortunate. We have a hospital in 12 minutes in one direction and probably about 17 minutes in the other direction. That is really, really positive. That is a very, very good thing.
I would say that that's a strength versus a weakness on two fronts. On the front that there is care available, and on the front that there are jobs available.
Yep.
And good pay.
You're muted again, John.
You're mute again.
I don't know what's happening with me, man. Good paying, stable jobs too. So if you could attract that type of workforce to our community,
Right.
you know, they would have a great opportunity to really contribute to our community.
Well, and I know that Julie has a long-term plan that includes having a local, I guess not a hospital necessarily,
A
but
clinic. It's
a
like
clinic,
a clinic.
yeah.
And doctor's offices. Yeah.
So I think that's a negative we could turn into a positive. I think maybe George added this, that we have affordable housing for labor force, which is a positive.
No, we need it. We no longer have affordable housing for the labor force.
Oh,
Nope.
I always thought we thought that was one of our strengths, is that,
It was until this year, until the pandemic.
okay. All right. I'm not sure where to go with that. I think that's a statewide, maybe
Workforce housing.
Yeah.
It's a countrywide problem right now.
countrywide problem.
Yep, national.
This is one of George's. No crashing waves, just a beautiful river with long views.
That's a problem.
No,
So
I
funny.
think he was adding to my list, and that was a.
That's what he.
I think he
that's
was
what's good.
tongue in cheek, I think.
That's very funny.
Um,
I agree with what John said. We can't possibly go from a negative like that to it unless we were not. It's two different activities. A branding activity is very different from what we're doing right now, and what we're doing right now might help us create a strategy to strengthen some of the things that we feel might be weaknesses, or even to better identify weaknesses. But branding can't, I mean, This is a long-term, these are long-term things to deal with.
Mhm.
And if you want to do branding, branding has to happen faster than that. You know?
And I think if the town's looking for a kind of an umbrella branding, then it's going to be something to
That's
do
not
with
gonna
five-masted schooners or the Madomic River, or, hub of the mid-coast, or it's going to be some more geographical or type thing, or historical type thing, because otherwise you can't get it all.
So we have what we have for people who are not poor. We have a good quality of life. There are a lot of recreation opportunities all over the place. Waldoboro has a lot of land that is open, forested and or whatever. We have room for expansion. We have lots of room for expansion. We don't have the infrastructure yet that some of the other communities do that would make it easier to build and so forth for housing. If you were looking at housing, for example, we have a lot of these towns around that are don't have our specific challenges. They have other challenges. I mean, if you look at Rockland, for example, very high mill rate, and they don't have a lot of room for growth. They have growth, but not a lot of room. And it's very high end growth at this point. I mean, there's a lot of, the coast is getting really targeted. So, I think we should, we should look at the things. We have commercial property available to grow and develop. We have a town, I think, that embraces small business, encourages small business growth. We also have a town that seems to, embrace families coming in. I mean, there's a lot to be said.
So here's another kind of interesting. When you get on Google, do a search, small town slogans, and there's a couple of websites that have towns that kind of don't mind making fun of themselves a little bit. And some of their slogans are actually really amusing. And I wonder if, part of the branding is not looking at yourself too seriously, maybe. And I'll just throw that out there. But if you do a search, you'll see some of them are a riot.
Well, I think
So where do we go from here, guys? I honestly don't know.
part of, if I can say it, part of it, I think Jen's kind of just pointed out there, and John's said it a while ago, is a lot of these problems that have been listed, they're not, I mean, we could just make a quick brand name slogan tonight and just, Bob suggested Waldoboro Works a while ago.
Yeah.
We could just pick that and move on, because some of these issues that we have been talking about tonight, the school systems, the housing, the hospital, all of these items, those are the things that need time to actually be discussed and worked on. That's where we do need to get research. That's where we do need to start actually being a bit more proactive in what we can do. I mean, for the affordable housing, we'll see how June 8th goes, because that might address part of that. The hospital, Julie's doing that with Lincoln Health, and hopefully that will be addressed. There's probably some other items that we haven't even talked about tonight that others have perceived. And with the housing, something that I get told from the people, why they were interested in 80 Gray when it was for sale, was that it was on sewer and water. They didn't need to go out into the middle of. One thing that I was tired of hearing is that people saying, "Oh, you could just buy any piece of land in Waldoboro, and that's where you can put your affordable housing." There's a reason you don't put it out in the middle of nowhere. They need to be on that sewer and water so that they don't need to buy a big septic field, and they don't have a water system that'll drain all the nearby wells. Like
Yep.
it is. There's a reason why it goes to Portland and Rockland and it doesn't go to Union.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
And so when we do expand sewer and water and we do a master plan to address those utility issues, that might start opening up the door for some people to look at the town again and say, hey, now there's a cheap piece of land that these utilities are right next to. We can make that work. We can actually put something there. And that might start that conversation.
Yep, and that's the whole point of what we did by creating the TIP district and setting up the projects for the EDA for the future, you know, the targets that we did. I mean, it was to address exactly this issue, to give us, to develop some infrastructure in the community that would be of benefit to both businesses, future businesses, and people who live here and people who will live here.
And then with the schools, I think you'd already just sort of started on what can be done, and that's bringing someone from the school here to ask, what can we do to try and improve the image of town? And
Yeah.
they might have an answer,
True.
and then we can start with that.
I think that's good.
Thank you, Max.
Bob, do you think we should take one more run at the select board?
No, I don't. I think what the select board needs is guidance from this committee. I
All
don't
right.
think when I suggested to them that you needed branding, the select board needed to decide who the branding was for. Well, you heard the answer. And
Yeah.
I did not want to argue. I agree completely with John. So I think part of the problem is figuring out what product is we want to sell. And once we figured out what we want to sell, probably pretty easy to brand it. I would suggest that under the Waldoboro Works brand or slogan, you could sell almost anything.
Yeah.
Right.
It's big enough as an umbrella to cover just about anything people in this town do. Waldoboro works because it has a medical arts building. Waldoboro works because it's got a river that produces clams. It works because we have town government that's forward-looking and plans. It works because we have a master plan. It works because we have or want to have fiber optic to every single house and business in Waldoboro. That all kind of
Yeah.
falls under that concept. Anyway,
I'm envisioning on our town website now, you know, that slogan, and then kind of what you're doing now, just listing all the ways that the town does work for you. And what's good about that approach is it could be used to attract business,
Mhm.
or it could be used to attract a family to live here that works
Yeah.
somewhere else. I mean, you've got so many different angles that you could take on that.
maybe what we need to do as a committee is set up our own website, Waldoboro's EDC,
Hmm.
and use it to attack the branding problems that we're talking about now.
You mean,
Town probably isn't the appropriate place to do that.
so
Hmm.
how, is that a legal thing that we would have to investigate, Bob? I mean, you remember
No.
how hard it is to remember how people going wide in the past and not double checking, running everything through the select board kind of got in trouble?
Well, I agree. We'd have to keep ourselves on a reasonably tight leash and not get ahead of the select board. But I think taking the initiative will take the pressure off the board and give them confidence that this group has credibility and knows where we need to place the emphasis. I mean, it could be used by the town as an arm to, I won't say advertise, but to publicize what we're trying to do.
Hmm.
And tie it into the master plan. I mean, the town does have a master plan.
Yeah.
We probably ought to be looking at that again to see what this committee can do to contribute to furthering the goals that are stated in that plan.
Yeah.
Well, and we should also pull up the comp plan just to make sure that we're covering the things we were assigned or so forth in the comp plan.
Yeah. Comp
Which is
plan.
part of
Sorry,
that.
Jen, thank you for that correction.
And the other thing too is that if it's a good thought, I think, to consider some type of a website. I don't know exactly how we could get it going, or if we needed funding for that or whatever. It doesn't have to be complicated.
No,
It doesn't have to be complicated.
I would probably hold off on just creating another website, right? Because the town has its website. The town does have a website right now. It has its economic development committee spot. I think last time Jen even mentioned that Rockland has a similar setup where you have the town of Rockland and it has a link to why work in Rockland.
It's beautiful.
We could do that. It could be the same thing. We don't need to confuse some people and say, here's the town of Waldoboro website. Here's the town of Waldoboro economic website. I don't know why we would do that.
well, let me just pose a question. Does the town of Rockland have a dedicated IT person that they pay a salary to run their website and to do all the other stuff that one has to do when one does digital stuff like security and organizing and posting?
I don't know. I don't know the extent of it, but I will assume they have an IT person either on call or not like a full-time person.
Yeah. I mean, one of the reasons we adopted the website we have is because it was very difficult to update it under the old system. Under the new system, it's a lot easier to update, but who has time? You know, Julie doesn't have time to do it. Tanya's pressed. You're pressed, Max. So there is an issue there, and I
So they have something we don't. They have, instead of committees, they have departments. Right?
well, we have departments.
Yeah.
Right, but this is a little bit different in the way they do. They don't have a ton of committees doing department work. You know?
But,
So I'm looking right now at their Economic and Community Development Department page. And it's actually, it could be just as simple as this. It's one page. And then they have links to doing business in Rockland, economic development services, view the community planning projects, view the housing programs and grants, view community infrastructure projects, learn about business incentives, learn about business finance options, start up a business in Rockland, view city plans and studies, and sustainability initiatives. And each one of those is a link to another page.
So is all of that subsumed under our planning department?
I don't know. I have no idea. Max, what do you think?
everything is just listed sounds like something that is in my department. Like that's something like how you do it, the guide of doing it. That's something the planning board wanted to do ages ago, and I finally made a guidance document of saying, all right, this is how you break down the land use ordinance. These are the items that everyone's going to deal with. This is the items you're only going to deal with if you're building. This is your specifics. Like it's a step-by-step guide essentially.
You got it online?
No, the planning board needs to approve it.
Good. Okay.
But that's just something that's being worked towards. And
Yeah.
that's why I go back to the point of, I don't see the point of another website. It's
Yep. I
So-
hear you.
So are you willing to have your department take that on, Max?
what, putting up things on the website?
Well, organizing them so if people want to learn about Waldoboro and how to start a business in Waldoboro and what Waldoboro's doing
Yeah.
and branding Waldoboro, where do we go for that? I mean, to
Yeah.
go to find a ballot on the website, I had to go to the clerk's department. And it wasn't intuitive initially. I mean, you'd think, oh, we're having an election. It should be on the homepage of the website. Well, it's not. You've got to dig.
Did you go to,
It's not intuitive. I mean, it's a much better website than what we had, don't get me wrong, but finding stuff on there is not easy.
well, I mean, I organize it as Julie, Tanya, and I. We do organize it by what does make sense. Like the Zoom meetings, for example. I've had the Zoom link on the town website for months now. I think ever since December or November, for ages now. Ever since the website, I think, was even uploaded or started accepting it. And I put it under Stay Connected. And whether it's a committee or a person asking, hey, can I get a Zoom link? I always say, here's the link, but you can also find it here on the town website. I'll then hear from that person maybe a few weeks later of like, oh, can I get the link again?
That's right.
And I say it's under Stay Connected. There's a reason it's called a Stay Connected tab. And like on the top, government, you can go to planning board and find all the planning board documents. You can go to the select board, find all the select board documents. Just today, I was describing to someone who was going to come to the planning board, how do I get on to Zoom? And I say, all right, you go to the town website and then you go to Stay Connected. And he says, okay, that's already too complicated for me.
Whoa.
It's not.
So the ballot is right. So if you click on the link right under absentee ballots on the homepage, take you to a page that is election information, and it has the link right there to the current town warrant right there.
All right, well, that's been changed since I last looked at it, which is probably a couple
Okay.
weeks ago. That's good. That's good.
Yep. And it has the school warrant as well there, which is a good thing.
And just for the website, at least how I've had to struggle with it is that everyone wants everything on the front page. But that's what made the first website so cluttered.
So bad. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Everything was just thrown on the front page, and people were mad when they weren't on the middle of the screen. People were mad they weren't at the top of it. They weren't. And there's a lot of important information we do put up there. Like one thing I stressed about, and we'll probably get to it a bit later when we get to town updates, is when I had to publicize the forums. Like I didn't want people to see the 80 Gray and Sylvania's forum at the same exact time, because I worried they would have thought that the 80 Gray forum was the Sylvania forum or vice versa. And I didn't want to confuse people on that.
Yeah. Well, it's much better now, Max.
All right. Well,
So I think what Bob is asking is, if you go to the EDC section of the website, and we want to blow that out a little bit by adding more,
content.
information, is that something the town would be able to, in other words, should we be working on that? And is that something the town would be able to do?
If you guys tell me what you want in the Economic Development Committee section, I can put it on the Economic Development Committee section tomorrow. Like I think I have the downtown master plan up there. If not, I'll put it up tomorrow. I think I have the comp plan up there. I know I have the UMO students' final reports up on there.
Where are they? Because I'm looking on the Economic Development Committee page right now, and I see a copy of the TIF down below. I see UMO collaboration, the three different ones down there. I see agenda and minutes, Economic Development Committee, general information, and then the brochure. I don't see a link to anything else.
If you want me to put anything else up on there, you can just tell me what you need.
You know what we should do? We should look at this, and you've got to tell us too, Max, what are our limits, right? So can we have multiple, like you said, you don't want to clutter up your landing page. So it would have to be done in a way that made sense to you, Max, right? Visually and design-wise, right?
Yep.
So maybe we put maybe there's an icon or something you put here that takes people to documents, like planning documents, or town participation planning documents, or things that.
Well, for the Economic Development Committee section, it should just be what the Economic Development Committee has dealt with, and the Economic Development Committee will deal with. So that's why I have the TIF there, and that's why I have the UMO students there, because the TIF is something you have done. That is something this committee was involved with creating. And the UMO students is something that will go to the master plan eventually.
Right. So the only problem is, okay, we could use a link to the master plan, because, I mean, not just the master plan,
And I can include that.
the comp plan, a link to the comp. But if we are talking about trying to expand that area to provide information like we're looking at on the Rockland website underneath their economic and community development section.
Mhm.
If you could just look, it's a lot of information. I think that's why Bob was saying maybe we needed our own page or our own site. It's a lot of information.
Let me ask this question. If you're new to Waldoboro, you want to learn about the town, and you want to learn about basically what this committee is trying to do, but you don't know the name of the committee. You don't know that you're supposed to go look under committees to find this information. How do you find it? It wouldn't occur to most people that they have to look under committees to find out what's going on with economic development.
Well, I think that's the difference, Bob, in between the way we designed our new website, which is much better and I love it, and how the Rockland website flows. And I'm looking at it right now, and it's really interesting because you're just mousing over things on the left. It's an interesting way they do the menu, but I'm mousing over doing business, and it brings up a whole nother, like a little column flips out and says, why do business in Rockland? And then it goes to small business resource center, startup of business, business incentives, finance your business, business location and relocation. So it's a little bit different in what you're offering, right? It's like, yeah.
Yeah, their drop-down menu actually has a heading called doing business.
Right.
And
So do we have one on the front page? Let me see. No, we don't. We have a how do I, and maybe under the how do I, we could say starting a business or something, or doing business in Waldoboro.
But I think to Bob's point, and this is not a criticism at all, but I just went through the town website to find the EDC page, and it's not inherently obvious how to do it. That's to Bob's point. And then even when you get there, it's basically a list of our agendas and minutes over the years. So there's no, at least I don't see, how to do business. And well, in fact, is our brochure here somewhere?
Yes,
Jen said was.
the brochure.
yeah, it is. It's on that box, the shaded box saying related pages. It's the third one down. Economic development brochure.
When I do the planning board documents, that is a guidance document for businesses that want to start in Waldoboro. I'm glad to put it on the EDC portion of the website. I'm fine doing that.
Yeah.
But to say, put everything about how to do business in Waldoboro up at the EDC page,
No.
no one's ever called me and said, what about the EDC? They ask, I want to do business in Waldoboro, and I've looked at the planning board section. So how do I go to the planning board? Because
So
every
why
town has a planning board.
Right,
Every
why-
town has that type of.
Max, why not just put that under how do I? You've got that right on every page. How do I? And have a link to that document you're creating starts from the homepage, makes sense.
And I'm fine doing that.
It doesn't
All
have to
right,
be on
well-
the economic development page, but I think what we're trying to do is where are people going to find the information that is going to serve to attract them? We
Okay,
don't-
so I have a homework assignment for the committee. So I want everyone to get onto the Town of Waldoboro's website and look for, pretend that you're a new business looking for a town. And go through the town of Waldeboro's website and see how easy it is for you to establish where to go and what to do. And then I want you to go to the town of Rockland website and do the same thing. And I think that exercise might actually point us in a new and good direction. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yep. I like Jan's suggestion about using the how do I
Yep.
link
Totally
as
agree.
a lead into that.
But you know, like if you see how other towns make it easy, then we can, you know, we can take advantage of their hard work and make our website easy too.
Poor Max thinks we're dumping all over him. We're not.
No, we're not.
No.
No, I'm looking at it's 8:05. That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I think we're, when I sent my email out first thing this morning, I said, this is the only thing I wanted to cover today.
But Max might have stuff to cover.
Yeah, Max, do you have anything to cover?
So we held the forums for 80 Gray and Sylvania, 13th for 80 Gray, the 18th for Sylvania. I think they were very well. They did exactly what they were necessary to do. And I think it provided a lot of information. I got some calls from people saying how they loved the Sylvania forum because it was more back and forth. I got some people saying that they loved the 80 Gray forum just because it was straight to the point, asking questions, nothing more. And both are available. They're recorded. All of it's on the town website under news and events, I believe. You can find all the documents I've had for Sylvania on the town website under that section. 80 Gray, I wish I got more information, but I have the basic proposals from the two groups. And that's about it. On the 21st, I submitted the community development block grant for Odd Alewives. So I'm going to cross my fingers on that one and hope we get that so that Odd Alewives can bring 3 full-time jobs to the town. That'd be nice. What else? The UMO students, as I just mentioned, if you go to the EDC portion of the town website, you can see their final reports just about their projects and everything. I'm glad that we got to do this cooperation with them. I'm looking forward to doing some more projects with them, primarily Riverwalk related ones. And now that Sylvania is a thing, we can look at something for Sylvania. And then lastly, Sylvania. You know, with I said it a few times, it would be nice to start looking at that for a potential EDA project. I think in the guidelines on the Sylvania information section of the website that I just mentioned, where you can watch the meeting, one of the documents that I uploaded last week was the proposal that Bill Napower and I wrote for Leadvance, explaining what the town would do if we got it, and an explanation for those who would look at it and potentially cherry pick my statements, because for some very interesting reason, my statements have been cherry picked quite a bit in the last few weeks. And so it's just saying, you know, we want to get some recreation. We want to get some, we can look at commercial activities, and we can do commercial activities as the environmental covenant would allow it. And that is something that we can do with an EDA project. We've always been talking about the downtown master plan. Depending on the scope, size and scope we want to do with Sylvania, we could have Sylvania incorporated into that as just a expand some utilities or putting in a Riverwalk type thing or boat launch there. Or, you know, if we're making it its own unique piece of town, then Sylvania itself can be its own lone EDA project. So something I would like, again, we'll wait until after the election, because next week, this is going to be it'll be a hectic week for me. So sometime in the future with the town, I'd like to at least do some more forums. And I don't know what Bob would have to explain it. The roles of the Sylvania task force, were they just to monitor the Sylvania site, or were they just 100% anything that happens at Sylvania goes through them? What was their overall goal?
We called it a task force because its existence was intended to be limited in nature, really to find out what the status of the property was at the time. Nobody knew anything about it.
Mhm.
And to develop a dialogue with Department of Environmental Protection. And now we're entering a new phase. And I think you bring up a great point, Max. We probably ought to revitalize that committee and give it a new mandate going forward. And maybe not call it a task force anymore, just call it I wish we had a different name than Sylvania, but I guess that's the name that stuck.
Well, I mean, with the task force, it could certainly be the same task force. I think it would be an opportunity for some of those members on the task force who may not want to be on a committee anymore to be allowed to transition out, and then allow some other residents in town who are also interested to join in.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to make it sound like I'm pushing out those members, because their input is going to be very valuable, and I'd love to have them on there. But I'm just saying, some people in town who may be new to the area since the Sylvania Task Force was initially created, they might want to at least say, I'd like to have it, because I've been promoting the whole thing of Sylvania is now Waldoboro's property. The town, not the select board, not me, not even Julie. We don't get to say what happens. It's going to be the town that decides what happens to it.
Right.
To then say, okay, no residents can be on the Sylvania Task Force. That kind of is a bit contradiction. So
Don't we
Makes
have
no- makes
residents
no
on the
sense.
task force?
what?
Aren't there residents on the task force? Isn't that the people
There
there?
are there are residents on the task force, but I'm saying we might want to get more people. We might want to bring some more interest to that area, because I think
Mhm.
once that's announced, we're going to start looking at all these potential uses. Some people might have a strong say of what should be there, and we don't want to close them out for anything.
So what about, because I'm thinking about going forward, if the vote is positive, then it probably makes sense that the different committees would have to work together. For instance, Recreation Committee might work with a Sylvania committee, or Economic Development Committee might work with a Sylvania,
And that
think about that.
right, and that I think is just a decision the select board will have to make, and that's why I'm saying it should wait until after the election,
Right.
because Sylvania is not on the ballot,
Oh,
but there is
okay.
a select board race going on right now.
Oh, true.
So I'd rather wait until
Yeah,
maybe July to then have that discussion with the select board of, all right, I assume the Sylvania deal will be done by then. The select board's now chosen. What should we do for the next steps for that place?
Yep.
yeah.
I think that's good, Max.
Thank you, Max.
Yeah,
Was
that's
there
all.
anything in front of the planning board, Max, at all?
Two subdivisions, so I doubt you'll care. And then
Why not? Why wouldn't we care?
one lot becomes three. That's all.
Oh,
That's all
that
it
was
really
it?
is.
Okay.
That's all
I
it
thought
is.
it would be something interesting, like somebody's
But-
actually be able to build now.
No, but there is one thing over. Ruben's going to get a notice about this in the mail probably tomorrow. 30 Manktown Road, the Main Coast Gymnasium, they are going before the board for a 30 by 30 expansion on their property.
Wow.
It's nothing really for new activities. It's just they like their students and they want to give their students more room.
Janice is staying very busy. I hung out with her for a couple hours. I'll obviously be in support of that, and I'm helping her upgrade her computer network because she's my neighbor.
Yeah, she told me how much she hated her internet. And I told her the fact that you're next door
Yeah,
should be something that she takes advantage of.
Oh yeah, we've seen to that problem.
That's awesome.
I'm wondering if John Martins could give us an update on Lincoln Health.
Please.
Am I imposing by asking for that?
No, not at all. In terms of the COVID-19 situation, our clinic in Booth Bay Harbor is going to close on Friday, basically because I think we've done the best that we can with the community vaccination clinic. The appointment numbers are way down, and the first dose appointments are incredibly way down. This week, we have 303 scheduled appointments, and only 3 of them are first dose appointments. So I think a lot of people have gotten their first dose, and they'll follow up with us for their second dose at the Watson Center at Lincoln Health, and they'll go from there. When the clinic closes, we will have delivered close to 24,000 individual doses since January 25th. So that's a big accomplishment. And we've been fortunate in Lincoln County that people have taken the vaccine process seriously. So we're really appreciative that people have gotten out there and gotten vaccinated. The one thing that we're seeing in-house as a frustration is the masking and screening protocols still are adhered to at Lincoln Health. I know that the governor really loosened and opened things up in terms of masking, but that does not apply to healthcare. Unfortunately, people are having some difficulty with that when they arrive to us and have to be screened and answer the same questions they've been answering for 8 to 10 weeks or longer. And so there's a sense of frustration there, unfortunately. The only other thing that I would bring up that's not COVID related is if you know of people who are CNAs or RNs and want to work in elder care, please send them our way. We are doing some things within our elder care services to consolidate staff to keep our people covered, but we are really at a difficult place right now for staffing in those particular venues and jobs. And there are plenty of those jobs out there, and we certainly could use the help. So if you know of anybody who is a CNA or an RN that might want to work in senior living, please let them know. Have them contact me, and I can hook them up to whomever. Things are, I think people are starting to get that sense that the worst is over. I think all the indications are that is the case. However, we quite simply, we don't know. And I think we all still have to be on our toes a little bit as we move forward.
Hey, John, do kids need to get the vaccine?
So right now, students 12 to 17 are eligible for the vaccine. The Pfizer product is what's being used for those kids. We've done school vaccination clinics at Lincoln Academy, at McDonough Valley, and in other places, and been pretty successful. We vaccinated, I think, 670 students over the course of a week with their first doses, and we will get them their second doses as well. The other thing I should have mentioned, which I can't believe I forgot this, but we did a pop-up clinic at the VFW in Waldoboro this week. For walk-ins and appointments. We vaccinated 65 people, which is not a bad turnout at all for those folks. And I think that's the approach you're going to see a lot of the hospitals and healthcare providers take now while they're figuring out, okay, how do we transition this into the primary care setting where you go to your primary care doc for the vaccine? We're going to be setting up pop-up clinics, in many different places, hoping that we can catch, a good handful of people and get them vaccinated. I know in the bigger cities, they're doing them at sporting events and brew pubs and all of those types of things. But, we're going to hopefully be creative as well and get ourselves out there. But yes, the 12 and up right now is the population that is cleared to get vaccinated at this particular point in time. And I know there's some work going on to try to look at the effects of the vaccine for children younger than 12.
Yeah.
But I don't know that any of that has been finalized yet.
Great. That's all that. Do we know what percentage of those that are 12 and older have been vaccinated in Lincoln County?
I could get you that number. I don't know it off
It's
the
not
top
important.
of
That's
my
just,
head.
it's
Yeah.
more curiosity.
Yeah, I know that overall our Lincoln County numbers are fantastic.
Yeah.
Lincoln County has led the state for most of this vaccination period, and now's no exception. Bob.
Yeah, two questions. One is the case count is, it must be way down in Lincoln County. Is that a true statement? And the second question is, you mentioned the need for RNs and other qualified people to help out with senior care.
Mhm.
Does that include consideration of volunteers?
Well, we do have volunteers who assist in more of the creature comfort type of things in our facilities when pre-COVID, but they're pretty much professional hires. They
Okay.
are. They have to meet the medical criteria. In terms of our caseload, fortunately, the last 3 weeks, our number of cases diagnosed has been between 11 and 13 after seeing a significant spike of being in the mid 30s for 2 or 3 weeks. So we have seen it drop off precipitously in the last 3 weeks. So that's a good sign.
It is, yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, John.
Hey,
Appreciate it.
Sure.
Actually, I
Reuben,
have a quick question, actually. I'm sorry, just
Yeah,
very
ahead.
quick question for John on the CNA RN jobs. If they're not a qualified CNA or registered nurse, is there a preferred like training program you could recommend to someone who, like maybe it's someone who's like just graduating from high school and they hear about this job opportunity, and is there something you could recommend?
So it's funny that you asked that. For the CNA program, 3 times a year, Lincoln Health hosts a CNA training course. It's a 10-week course. It's offered free of charge to anybody who wants to take it. If these are folks who are working and want to apply for an apprenticeship program and get selected for that, not only will they get a free education, but they'll get paid while they're learning. So we offer that 3 times a year at Lincoln Health. Like I said, it's free. And it's a really great opportunity for anybody who'd like to go the CNA route. We also have a nursing program through Central Maine Community College at Lincoln Health as well, that many folks go through and come out the other side as a nurse that we can use in our facilities as well. The CNA program has been really successful for us in terms of helping us fill some of the holes that are necessary, but unfortunately, we still have a big need.
And I'm sorry if this is me asking too much for off the top of the head information. Do you know when the next 10-week program starts?
I know that they're currently midway through the current session.
All right.
So my guess is it will start in the fall, but I don't know for sure, Max.
All right.
Is there an age cutoff? If you're 90 years old, you could take the course?
Hey, it's funny because we've seen people who have taken CNA courses, not at our hospital, but at other places, so that they could see their loved one and care for them during the pandemic.
Wow.
So we had people in their mid 60s who had somebody in a nursing care facility in other parts of the country. They got their CNA, they went to work, and they got to see their loved one. And it was really the only way they could have done that. So
Wow.
people have gotten very creative over the last couple of years.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. We may as well ask Reuben, do you have any updates for us?
Well, the last big project for the CTC is done. Chapel is wired, as is the road in front of and behind it. If you drive that road and know where to look, you'll see a lot of folks getting connected up. So that's nice. The next meeting, which I believe is on the 7th, the CTC is going to start work on a question for what is essentially a moonshot. We need to define what we want, which as Bob alluded to earlier, is we have a very loose idea, which is we want fiber to every single address in town, and we need to figure out how to ask for that. So we're going to start drafting a question that goes to every ISP that exists in the area as step 1, because that is the easiest way to do it. That'll include charter, that'll include LCI. We're going to be very fair, very even-handed, and very open about that question. And as we do that, we'll also come up with a plan A and a plan B. So if no ISP says yes to us, what do we do then? And this would not be a halfway network. This is a modern fiber network that will leave a dent in Waldoboro for the next century. And fiber really can't last that long. The media will outlive the poles. So
Wow.
that is our next task. It is super duper hard. And we're going to lean right the heck into it.
Nice.
Ruben, that sounds great.
Yeah, nice work.
We have our fearless leader.
We're going to do something. We're going to cause some trouble if nothing else.
Hey, now's the time. Now's the time.
That's correct.
All right, so we have our homework. We're strongly considering Bob's recommendation for a slogan. And I'm already confused. Is it Waldoboro We Work?
No, Waldoboro Works.
Waldoboro.
Works.
Okay.
I really like Waldoboro Works, for the record. I don't think anyone here hates it, but
No, I like it too.
it's a broad brush we could do a lot with. We could make that tool
Yes.
very sharp very easily.
I kind of like it for that reason. It crosses over.
Yeah, I see a rotating banner in my head. Waldoboro Works for you, for us. You could have all these different scenarios.
Yep, beautiful. All right, so we got our homework, right? So by next meeting, we'll all have gone on to the Waldoboro website and the Rockland website and compared, pretending we're a new business, and compared the how easy each of those sites were to navigate. Is that everybody on board with that?
Yep.
Got it.
All right, and is there any other business?
I have one question, and it's just to clarify your remark, Jan. So there's a lot of targets we could go after, and I think it's pretty clear. We need to pick one. We need to isolate something. Business makes sense to me, but is that what we're looking at right now? Is we're not calling anyone unimportant, but we're going to focus on this piece. Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah, I think,
And that again, that's not a bad thing. I just want to understand my homework.
yeah, I think strictly from the perspective, because we are the EDC.
Right.
So strictly from the perspective of entrepreneur or a new business
Okay,
looking to
great.
start. Yeah. Does that make sense to everybody else?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. All right, meeting, here it is, 8:27 and meeting. Thank you so much, everybody, on short notice. Really appreciate it. And meeting is adjourned.